What's good, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm your host, Dr. Nee. I'm joined by
Dr. Renee. Woo!
Hey, listen, before we jump into this episode, I got a question for you. Listen.
Yeah.
How would you categorize yourself? Would you consider yourself to be a superwoman, right?
Ooh.
Or would you consider yourself to be a career woman or
No.
a CEO?
So let me go to Superwoman. Superwoman is like, I think about Karen
I'm
White.
not your superwoman.
Right? That's who I think about, Karen White, right?
I'm not the type of girl
that you can let down and think that everything is okay.
Oh, I am more than human.
Okay, no, that's not what it
words.
says.
That's
I
am
am only human.
Only human.
If she were more than human, then she would be a superwoman. She's saying she's not anyway.
All right, just move on. All right, it gets the people going.
That I'm definitely not a superwoman, and I do not aspire to be a superwoman.
Don't you take pride in that? I thought all women, they want to be like superwomen. Like men want to be like super dad, Superman, and all these different things. You don't take pride in that?
So, I guess it depends on what you mean, but when I think about superwoman, I think about somebody who is doing everything and doing it so well and doing it whatever, and I'm like, but that person doesn't exist, right? Like, this person doesn't exist. We don't live in a bubble.
In the world of balance, in a world where there's balance, right? People be lying. Like, I balance. I give 50% to everything. You lying. But go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I don't believe in balance. That's the other thing. I think there's always more to do today and then more to do tomorrow and something else. And then, this notion of a superwoman, I'm definitely not that, and I don't aspire to be that. I'm just kind of.
So what about a career woman or CEO then?
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not a career woman. I think for me, I think I'm a family woman. That really is, I think, if I had to choose a label, I would say I'm a family woman. For me, My family comes first, and I do certain things to be able to have a certain life, with and for my family. So that's what I would label myself if I had to choose a label, a family woman. Yeah, why?
Well, the next guest that we have is Dr. Archana Shrestha, and she would describe herself as a CEO. So when I was growing up, I always thought that women, took pride in saying that they are superwomen. They can handle everything. They can multitask. You know how there's always that bragging, women can multitask, men can't multitask. They're only good at single things and so forth.
Well, but it's true.
So it's true. It is true. Y'all can multitask your asses off.
I don't know about all men, but I know you definitely cannot multitask, okay?
Well, we're going to talk more about that in this episode. So I had a conversation with Dr. Archana. She is a physician life coach. She is an ER physician, board certified ER physician. She's a speaker. She's an entrepreneur. And she is also a host of the podcast Women in White Coats. She's also founder of Mama Doc's weight loss program. But she's really here to talk about, what it's like to go through with shedding the superwoman persona, what it's like to pivot even from ER into telemedicine. What does double burnout mean? Right, which is, I thought was interesting. So let me just get straight to double burnout. Is she was burnt out not just from her being an ER doc, but also burnout with being a parent. Which is crazy. And then we're also going to talk about, in order to be successful or to find quote unquote balance or to be, kind of just have, to be well-rounded, do you got to be do you have to be selfish? Right. And that's something that I oftentimes think about. Right. So let's jump into this episode with Dr. Archana so we can get her thoughts. All right. Let's do this. All right. Dr. Archana Shrestha, former superwoman of her family and also CEO of her family, and also is a board certified emergency medicine physician. Welcome to Docs Outside the Box. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. So great to be here, Dr. Nee.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I was actually on your show a couple of weeks ago, so I appreciate you letting me be on your show. That is the Women in White Coats podcast, a very popular podcast out there. So I decided to say you were a former superwoman because you actually, most people say, yeah, I'm a superwoman, I'm badass and so forth. I'm Wonder Woman, what have you. That sounds like a really great connotation, but we were talking about this just before. You say former superwoman. Talk to us about why you no longer want that connection with your name.
Yeah, such a great intro. I haven't had anyone introduce me that way, but I love it.
Superwoman. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what? It's really interesting. Nee, I grew up with a superwoman. My mom is I had a superwoman raise me, I should say. Okay. My mom is a now retired family medicine doctor, immigrant from India, and she was a hustler. Like she worked incredibly hard to give us everything that we had. They came to this country. My mom set up a private practice. They had 3 kids in diapers all at once. Like we were just like all a year apart. Like they had to make some tough decisions. And what they decided was that my dad was going to stay home and raise us. And so my mom was out there being the superwoman. And what a superwoman is somebody who is a woman who's got a career and also has a family life, right? So that's different from a career woman who has a career and then realizes that they're going to sacrifice family life to a degree to have this career. But a superwoman is someone who has this full-blown career, working full-time, but also doing everything at home. So they keep adding and adding and adding and adding to the plate until something topples, right? And
so you're a boss at work and then you're a boss at home. Not only can you you can wreck shop at work, but you can also take control of what's going on in the house, and you also doing everything, cleaning, cooking, all that stuff. And it's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you have the first shift of work and then you come home to the second shift of home. My mom was doing all the cooking, the grocery shopping. She was taking us to different activities. And not to say my dad wasn't a huge help, but she felt culturally that was part of her responsibility. So she didn't want to, she felt that was just part of what she needed to do.
What's your upbringing? What's your cultural background or your ethnicity? Where's that from?
Yeah, my parents are from India.
Ah, okay, got you. Okay, all right.
But what I saw was that essentially my mom burned herself out, trying to do all this and never really taking any time for herself. Because usually what happens when somebody is a super mom or a superwoman is that they essentially sacrifice themselves. They sacrifice their own self-care, their own like their own personal well-being. So she was almost
always
like
caretaker, almost like caretaker syndrome. Yeah,
exactly. She was like the first one to get up in the morning and the last one to go to sleep, and didn't even sleep well when she was sleeping, and then never really took any time for her own self-care. Didn't really exercise, or I never remember her going to go for a spa day or a massage, or really take many vacations. Like her vacations were going home to see family in India. So what I saw was that I became a mom.
Typical immigrant. My parents aren't they're not from India, but that was their vacation. We going back to Ghana, and that's our vacation. We're not going to Disneyland. We're not going to go to come on. We could go to Atlanta. No, we're going to Ghana. That's not a vacation, guys. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that was so when I became a mom as well, I'm modeling my own mother, trying to be this superwoman.
Oh wait, hold on. Before you get into that, when you noticed that your mother broke down, what age were you when you noticed that?
I mean, so she basically, I wouldn't say there was any specific major health crisis that really happened, but it was just chronic stress, right? Chronic insomnia. She was a pretty anxious person, kind of would be a little bit on the more depressed side, although never clinically diagnosed with any of those types of things. But then when I became a mom myself, actually, she was diagnosed with psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disorder. And they say it has a lot to do with stress, right? Chronic stress. And so, and she had hypertension and some other things going on. A lot of these things were chronic stress things, right? And so, and I just didn't see her being all that happy in life, right? But I went on to try to be just like her when I became a mom, and I was thinking this is what I'm supposed to do. When you're a mom, you have all these superpowers, you could work full time, you could take care of the kids, you can do all these things. And on top of that, my mom used to throw these elaborate parties. She was this amazing cook. And I was trying to be all these things. And then I started to feel burnt out myself.
At this point, when you are a mom, are you already a physician at this point? Are you an emergency medicine doc at this time? Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I was an emergency medicine doctor. I had 2 kids after becoming an attending. They're about 2 years apart. everything was going quite well up
But
until
that's high stress, right? It's high stress. Sometimes you're probably working night shifts. So it's really different than maybe even the way in which your mother was working also. Like it's probably to the nth degree now. The way in which you're doing it. You got 2 kids. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's just, I like to put perspective on things sometimes and just say, oh, wow, like this is a little bit different. So go ahead, jump in there, please.
Yeah, no, exactly. So the way, I was working full time. I was working evenings, nights, weekends, holidays, and then I had 2 kids at home. And I would just come home and feel like, I definitely wanted to be with my kids, but then I also, there was all the housework that needed to be done too, right? Of cooking, cleaning, and laundry, and grocery shopping, and taking kids to their doctor's appointments, and all those things that needed to be done. And I would try to have these like awesome birthday parties for them and all this stuff, and be like the amazing hostess as well. And I was like, I should be able to do these things, and because I'd seen my mom do them. But then what I started to realize is that I was experiencing double burnout, what I call double burnout.
Yeah, I ain't never heard that. Tell us what that is. You were talking about that earlier. What is double burnout?
So it's professional and parental burnout. So I was feeling burnt out from the job of working in the ER. And, everything was actually going okay. I wasn't feeling burnt out until I had the kids. Because of this whole second shift. Like I would go to work and then I wouldn't get to come home and just rest. Like before kids, I could rest, right? I could have my own time off. I could have downtime. We could go travel on the weekends with my husband. I could just do whatever I wanted to do. But now it's like I would come home and there was like a whole bunch of other stuff that needed to be done at home. And I wasn't really finding that time to rest and relax. And I also
go ahead.
Exercising very regularly. And I had been an athlete most of my life. I was like a runner and I played college tennis. And so it was like, for me, not to find the time to exercise was also just making me feel worse. I was really out of shape. I was like, huffing and puffing going
it's
up
tough.
the stairs.
You ain't got time for that. By the time the end of the day comes, you ready to pass out. You ain't got time to do no bicycling and exercising and so forth. Well, let me ask you, how far into your career did you finally realize, I am burnt out? Like my kids are driving me nuts. I'm burnt out from that as well as my job. Like what year are we talking? How long into your career before you figured this out?
Yeah, so I was still, I guess I would say relatively early in my career, probably about 5 years into my career. And so I was just like, man, I was like, I'd be at work and I would be like thinking about home and how I just wish I could be at home. And then I would be at home wishing about, like thinking about work, not
it's
wishing
like
I
guilt.
could be at work.
You're having like this guilt almost.
Yeah, I was like thinking about work and like all the stuff that I need to do there, like cases or charts or whatever. And so it's like I could never be present in the moment where I was, right? And just sort of having a super negative attitude at work and then also a negative attitude at home.
Did anybody ever say something to you, or did your husband say something to you? Did your kids say something to you like, Mom, like just chill? Or someone at work say like, yo, Dr. Shrestha, like what's the deal? Like did that ever happen like that, or was there like a breaking point?
Yeah, I mean, the breaking point for me was a couple of things. I mean, one where it's just like, I'm not happy to say this, but like I wasn't acting as a mom I wanted to. Like I was just losing my temper really easily with my kids. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, and then, and then my kids like crying and they're like, Mommy, like what happened? Like they'd be kind of like scared. You could see that look of fear in their eyes. I'm
some
like,
people listening to this podcast, like, oh snap, she talk about me. But that's a real thing. I get it. Keep going though. This is interesting.
Yeah. Like where you just like snap at your kids and you're just like, oh my God, like this is not the person I want to be. Like they're such beautiful little human beings who are just so innocent. And I just can't. I'm just so burnt out and crispy and fried that I can't maintain my composure with my kids. And I just remember like bawling to my brother and to a friend and being like, man, I'm such a horrible mom, for just like snapping at my kids like that. Or just, and then another time was just like at work, right? And I was like, man, like I'm not showing up for these patients the way I want to, or like, where you get that patient where they're like, you know that they're not happy with your care, or you're just like, man, I'm not showing up the best way.
Compassion fatigue.
Yeah. And so that was and then the third breaking point was when I had to do, a life insurance physical, and for the first time in my life, I had this BMI that showed that I was overweight. So it was like affecting me physically because I was gaining weight. I was not feeling energetic to play with my kids. I was showing up crabby with my kids and at work too, just like a very negative attitude. And I was like, and then you get like this, sometimes a patient would complain or a nurse would complain, and you're like, dang, this is not the person that I started out as. This is not the way I want to continue.
It's funny, like for me, like if that happened to me, and like for me, like financial motivations are like the biggest motivations for me. So once I find out probably my insurance is going to go through the roof because I'm overweight and my BMI, I'm like, yo, I got to do something about this. So I'm interested with you. Like that was the last draw probably. Like, yo, we raising your insurance rates possibly on you. They rating you, right? If they did or not. Hopefully they didn't. But, with all of those three things, what did you do? What was the next step that you took to be like, one, recognizing that, yo, I'm burnt out, and two, like, what did you do to kind of get yourself out of it? Did you pivot? Talk to us about that so that we can gain some perspective, and maybe people who are listening can be like, yo, that's me. I want to take the steps that she took.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing was just like, first of all, taking care of myself, right? I mean, like, you know what? Because you can't really give to anybody. You can't truly give with the giving heart, right? You need to give from the overflow. But when you are giving from being empty and depleted, that's not truly giving. And so it's like, I can't give to my family. I can't give to my patients until I take care of myself. And so I found a coach. I started to get in shape. Who's a physician coach who helped me, first of all, just get into shape, get my weight under control so I could feel more energetic. Yeah. Workout program, nutrition plan, okay. And then me just scheduling the time to exercise on a regular basis, like 5-6 times a week, and just having that. Folks,
y'all heard that? She said scheduling time. You got to put it in your schedule. You got to make it a priority. So I got you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but people sometimes like they skim over those things. Like you have to put that in there that this is your time to do this for your body. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
And my other tip on that is if you've got kids, do it before the kids wake up. Because if you don't do it then, it's never going to happen. I can tell you. And I've coached people on weight loss. It's one of the things that I coach on now. But the thing is, like, once those kids wake up, they're going to want your attention, and it gets like thrown out the window. That plan of working out is just probably never going to happen. So I started to wake up early. I did my workout. I took that first hour of the day for myself. Nobody else got that time except for me. It was like me filling my cup, working out, doing some meditation, doing some gratitude journaling. And I just got into this really great morning routine. The weight started to come off and I started to feel so much better. So the first thing was really just taking care of myself.
How long does this process take for you? I know obviously it's a continual process, right? Like it's not like this finite thing from this is who, Dr. Archana was at this point and this is who you are like 2 months later. But like specifically, like when did you start to realize and you look back like, oh yeah, like I don't feel like who I was months ago? When did that occur for you? Is that months later, years later, or is it still a continuous thing you got to work on?
Well, I would say like within a few months, I really started to feel better. Like my energy was better. I was losing weight. People at work, I remember this one nurse coming up to me being like, hey, doc, you just seem like so much happier now. Like he said something like, you just seem like a different person, something along those lines. I was like, dang, like I must have been really crazy.
Why didn't y'all tell me about this 2 months ago, guys? Yeah.
But yeah, within like, I'd say 3 to 6 months, I really started to feel a lot better. I was losing the weight. My energy was better. I was feeling like I was pouring into myself, and therefore I had, I had energy to give to others, to my family. I could show up better at work. I could show up as the person that I wanted to show up as.
So if we were to summarize, things that occur, I think one of the things that we talk about, at least what I like to talk about, is the whole concept of free agency as a physician, right? Like you own your life, you own your degree. And just because there are certain options available doesn't mean necessarily that you have to do things exactly in the way in which the options are presented to you, right? Like it's like getting a whole plate of food, going to the buffet. Like ain't nobody tell you that you got to fill the whole plate with food, right? Like you can put a little, snippets of food in there and then come back and get more if you want to. So let's talk about free agency, because I think you have a really interesting perspective about that. Tell us the steps that you took, the steps that you recommend to people who are trying to gain more control of their life, but also at the same time have jobs, particularly as physicians or in healthcare, that says, no, you got to do things this way. And that may not jive with your life and how you live your life right now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, so when I mentioned that I went through professional burnout, so my story kind of has a lot of twists and turns, but essentially I went through multiple rounds of burnout. That was my first round of burnout that I told you about, where it was really what I call this double burnout, because there was this professional burnout, but there was also this parental burnout, and I wasn't taking care of myself. So I was able to work through that by really fixing my self-care and pouring into myself so I could show up better as a parent. So the parental burnout sort of started to go away. I also built this team around me when you talk about me being the CEO of my life. And that's why I say, I don't think as women, we should strive to be superwomen, but we should instead try to be CEOs of our life. And so what I did was I really started to reach out and communicate better with my husband. It's like, here's what I really need from you. And here's how it really helped me, in so many different ways. And I just, we got a nanny, we had Amazon Prime, we would order
Amazon
all of
Prime.
those things.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. 2 days. I love it. Mm-hmm.
All those things, right? So that I didn't feel like I had to do all this stuff myself. I was building in systems, I was building in support. We got a cleaner, like all these things, a household, someone to clean our house, like all these different things, like shifted me out of trying to be that person who did everything to being the CEO of my life. So it
sounds like you're delegating more.
Yes, delegating more. So then when you talk about then I went through some other rounds of burnout. My more recent one was where I left the ER. I no longer work in the emergency department. I work in a different setting now, and I work as a telemedicine doctor seeing urgent care patients. And so the thing there that I really realized that really created this shift for me was I was like, right. And I was working for this contract management group, and, things kind of got sketchy there in terms of they were like, oh, we're going to cut your hours. And then they said, oh, you guys should just be happy you have a job. There other places are cutting pay. There's all these financial repercussions of the pandemic, which I'm sure obviously many of your listeners know about, but it affected the bottom line in our emergency department and this contract management group. And so they wanted to cut our hours and possibly even cut our pay. And the messaging was like, well, you guys should just be happy you have a job right now. And I'm really? Okay. We're in a pandemic, and we should just be happy we have a job. I think we're doing a lot of awesome things here. We're serving the community. But anyway, what I started to realize is that, I'm a free agent. Nobody owns my degree. I'm the one who went to medical school. I paid for my degree. I'm still paying for it. I do still have some student loans.
You got the loan receipts. Show it to us, man. That's what I'm saying. You got the loan receipts to show that. I agree with you 100% on that. You preaching to the choir here. So keep going, please.
So I was like, you know what? I'm a free agent. Nobody owns me or is going to tell me what I am worth or where I should be working or how many hours I should be working. And I had been at the same job for 12 years. It was at that time 12 years. And I was sort of just used to it. I was sort of coasting. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and be treated this way. And I'm a free agent. I can do whatever I want with this medical degree. I could go set up a private practice. I could go work for someone else. I could do something totally different with my degree if I want. And I just started to sort of look at it. I'm like, we're just athletes out there, professional athletes. We're free agents. We can choose to do whatever we want. Because the thing is, when we say I have to be here, I need this income, and there's nothing else I can do, then that immediately puts you in this super negative mind frame. And it
puts you in a scarcity mindset. It's a scarcity mindset. And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with what you say. And I always say, listen, and I tell people, I know that there's more sophisticated ways that you can do things with your money if you have a bunch of student loan debt. I understand that. If you have less than 5% of interest, then maybe you should go and, invest in real estate or invest in the stock market. But then if you have more than 5%, then you should pay off the debt. I understand all of that mathematics, but that emotional mathematic of having all of this debt and then someone telling you exactly what they told you, which is, hey, hey, we're going to probably change your, take your pay down, or we're probably going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, how likely are you going to bounce if you have a ton of student loan debt, or you don't have that emergency fund, or if you don't have all of your finances in order? You're going to take what they tell you. So I agree with 100% of what you're saying. Like, a lot of it starts financially, but also it comes mindset wise that, like you said, like, you got the degree, you can go anywhere, you can switch positions. I oftentimes call ER docs the lawyers of medicine. Like, you guys can do so many different things. Literally, you can go directly and just do urgent care. You can go and do primary care and do work just like family medicine doctors do, or you can go and do something that's more procedural based, because you have so many skills that cross so many different specialties. Is dope, right? So I agree with that. So people who are listening, what she's saying basically is that you own your own degree. Your degree can go and you can do so many different things with that. And it really is up to your mind what you put shackles on, right? And then you got to be intentional about it, right? And then the last thing you talked about, which is what leads us to your podcast as well as the entire organization, is you found community, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much to say there. I mean, you have to be intentional. You have the choices of what you're going to do with your degree. We so often, especially in this era right now of, these hospital groups like buying out practices and corporatization of medicine. And now they're saying their insurance companies starting to hire doctors directly. I mean, you can feel so owned, but the real thing that you need to realize is it's your degree. You get to decide what you want to do. You can go set up whatever practice you want. Maybe you need to do some additional training, or maybe you don't. But you can set up a direct primary care. You can set up so many different things. There's so many options out there, but you need to step into your power and realize that you have all those options. Be intentional about my number 2 tip was be intentional about the life that you want to create. I got really intentional when I decided to leave the ER. Is like, you know what? I don't want to feel owned anymore. I don't want to feel like somebody's handing me my schedule and I just have to take whatever they give me. I want to have control over my time. I want to be present with my kids. I want to be there when they get off the bus in the evenings. I want to have my weekends off for the first time in over 12 years and have all my holidays off and go on vacations with them. So I started with the end in mind, and I was like, this is the life I wanted to create. And I was like, I'm going to do telemedicine, and here's the hours I'm going to work. I'm going to be an independent contractor. I'm never going to be employed again. And I'm also coaching, and I'm a physician life coach, and I coach on wellness. I coach on weight loss. And started to build a community called Women in White Coats, where we are all about uplifting and empowering women doctors. We've written books, we do courses, we do coaching, and we do live events. And I think that part of the reason I felt so empowered to be that free agent, to be intentional in my life, was because I was surrounding myself with this positive, uplifting community of other women who were trying to take back control and trying to live life intentionally and not just say, okay, I have to take whatever I get from the system, right? From these employers, from corporate medicine. And I also invested in a coach. And I mentioned that at the beginning, that I got a life coach. I found a physician life coach who really pushed me to question these cultural archetypes that we have out there of like, oh, you need to work till you're 65. Oh, you can't retire early. You can't leave emergency medicine. Like, like all of these things are, you can't, have your husband take care of the kids or cook dinner or whatever, all these like little things, right? That some are little and some are big cultural archetypes that we have out there, these stories that are prominent out there, and just really kind of like question them and be like, is that true? Is that true for you? And how do you really want to live your life? And
I also think that what you said is key. Like sometimes you have to have a coach come in and say, hey, look, let me help you look at things from a different perspective. And I think we as individuals put so much weight, or at least as high achieving individuals, we put so much weight on ourselves as I can do it myself. And when you haven't figured it out, then you put more guilt and more stress on yourself. Whereas there are options out there. There are people out there who can help you look at things differently, like you said, who can literally break that archetypal type structure that we have in our minds. So I think that's really dope. I think it's really dope.
We all have blind spots, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like if you, like even when you're driving a car, there's certain blind spots. You just are not going to be able to see those. And that's what a coach can help reveal. And, another way of looking at it is it's like, imagine you're on the inside of the ketchup bottle, right? Like, you can't see the label on the outside of what's going on and like how you're labeling yourself or how you're seeing yourself, right? You're on the
That's an
inside. So you
interesting
can't
way of
see
looking at it. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's a really
So
interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
that's what a coach can help you do. They can see the bigger picture. They can show your mind and how you're thinking. And our thoughts are so important, how our mindset is so important. And once you start to break free from those thoughts that are kind of preventing you from having those results you want, then the whole world can open up to you.
Well, Dr. Archana, this was dope. This was a great conversation because this is a real issue. I think a lot of our high achieving women, the doctors who are dope, they're great, but you're trying to carry too much stuff on your shoulders, right? So I love this conversation. But if people want to hear more from you, if they want to hear more about your community, tell them how they can get in touch and be among this community of really great women physicians.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can follow me or go to my website at mightymommd.com. And it's mightymommd.com, or go to our womeninwhitecoats.com website. And we are on all the different social medias, Instagram and Facebook. And you can definitely find us there. We'd love to connect with you and, help uplift and empower you.
There it is. Everybody, former Superwoman, Dr. Archana, who is now the CEO of her family. You heard it live and direct. Make sure you check out all of the links that will be in the show notes where you can get in contact with her, where you can listen to her podcast, and where you can communitize, if that's a word, if you could be in the community with her. Dr. Archana, thanks for coming on Docs Outside the Box.
Thank you, Neo. It's amazing.
All right, so that's a wrap. What do you think about this episode? What's your takeaways?
Wow. So there were definitely things that I have to say resonated with me, especially when she talked about being home and just kind of being this different person that she ever imagined that she would be as a mother, like getting frustrated with her kids. Like I can definitely feel that. I can tell you. I think every mother can, but I don't think we all verbalize it. You're home. You've had a long day, and now the kid won't listen to you, and they're interested in all these other things, and you're just like, I just need some rest, and you just don't see a way for this to kind of just stop, for you to have some time to yourself. But I think what the most important thing is that she recognized that not only was this leaking into her home, but this was leaking into even who she was as a physician, and that people were actually taking notice. And she was noticing even, patients not really kind of warming up to her. And eventually when she made the change, that people at her job were like, wow, you're really different. And she's like, damn, how bad was I?
Why didn't you tell me sooner? Yeah,
right.
I took away you got to be a little bit of selfish to yourself, right? I think if you try to please everyone, including your kids and your job, and you're not paying attention to yourself, you get a little bit of some caretaker syndrome, right? Yeah. And I picked up on the whole she wakes up early before the kids, because what happens once the kids wake up, that's it. I think that's
it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're single, you don't have to really worry about that. But once you have kids,
if you're single, and if you're single without children.
If you're single without children,
right.
You're right. Thanks for correcting me, because there's so many different ways in which people's lives are, right, that we have to be cognizant of. If you're single without children, you can do certain things. And then if you have kids, it just makes it a little bit more difficult, but doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a system. So I like that she wakes up early. That's my system now. 5 o'clock to like 7 o'clock is my time. And that's the time that I'm going to exercise, and that's the time that I'm going to work out. So listen, I think this was a great episode. I really hope to have more episodes like this. I think this was dope. And I think this is the messaging from her is not just for women. I think obviously men can pick up on this also. So listen, guys, text us. Let us know what you think about this episode, all right? Let us know what your takeaways were from this episode at 1-833-230-2860. Once again, that's 833-230-2860. We're going to catch you guys on the next one. Dr. Renee will catch you on the next one. Peace.